And we begin tonight with breaking news with what investigators in Utah are calling a political assassination. Conservative activist Charlie Kirk was shot and killed while speaking at an event at Utah Valley University.
Charlie Kirk started as just a regular American teenager, but within a few years, he built an empire worth over 500 crore rupees. He had millions of followers hanging on to his every word. College students across America believed what he said. Politicians took his advice. But here's the shocking truth. Many of his most famous claims were complete lies. Today, we're going deep into the most controversial and false claims made by Charlie Kirk. Before we talk about his controversial statements, let's understand who Charlie Kirk was. He was born and raised in America, and from a young age, he was interested in politics. In 2012, when he was just 18 years old, he founded an organization called Turning Point USA. Now, what was Turning Point USA? Think of it like a student organization that promoted conservative ideas in American colleges and universities. Kirk believed that American colleges were too liberal, and he wanted to bring conservative thoughts to young students. Initially, Kirk was relatively unknown, but after 2016, when Donald Trump became president, Kirk became a strong supporter of Trump. This changed everything for him. His organization started getting millions of dollars in donations, and Kirk himself became very wealthy, earning over $400,000 per year by 2021. But with fame came controversy. Kirk started making statements that many people found problematic. Some were about race, some about COVID-19, and some about elections. When COVID-19 hit the world in 2020, Kirk made several claims about the pandemic that turned out to be false. Let me break this down for you. Kirk claimed that a medicine called hydroxychloroquine was 100% effective in treating COVID-19. This was completely false. Multiple scientific studies showed that this medicine was not effective against COVID-19. In fact, Twitter banned Kirk temporarily for spreading this false information. Kirk also made false claims about how previous presidents handled pandemics. He said that during the 2009 swine flu pandemic, President Obama waited until millions were infected and over 1,000 deaths before declaring a health emergency. This was also completely false. Obama declared a health emergency when there were less than 280 cases in the US and only one death had occurred. Why would Kirk make such a false comparison? It seems he was trying to make Trump look better by making Obama look bad, but he used fake facts to do it. Kirk also said he refused to wear masks because the science around masks is very questionable. But by 2020, there was clear scientific evidence that masks help reduce the spread of respiratory viruses. This wasn't some new or uncertain science, and we've known for decades that masks work for respiratory diseases. Now, why is this important? Because during a global pandemic, spreading false medical information can literally cost lives. If people believe that a medicine is 100% effective when it's not, they might not take other precautions. If people don't wear masks because someone told them the science is questionable, they might get infected or infect others. After the 2020 American presidential election, when Trump lost to Biden, Kirk made several claims about election fraud. Kirk promoted what was called "Stop the Steal," the idea that the 2020 election was stolen from Trump through fraud. He even led protests in Arizona and was considered an important person in Rudy Giuliani's plan to overturn the election results. But here's the key question. Was there actually widespread fraud in the 2020 election? Multiple courts, including judges appointed by Republican presidents, found no evidence of widespread fraud. Even Trump's own Department of Homeland Security called it the most secure election in American history. Kirk also spread false statistics about various topics. For example, he once claimed that human trafficking arrests increased dramatically under Trump, using specific numbers that sounded very precise and convincing. But when fact-checkers examined these numbers, they found that they were fake and came from a conspiracy website called 8chan. He posted these false statistics on social media, and when fact-checkers pointed out they were wrong, he quietly deleted the post without any explanation. This is a pattern we see repeatedly. Kirk would make dramatic claims with specific numbers, but when fact-checkers examined them, they often turned out to be false or misleading. This brings us to perhaps the most sensitive part of our discussion today, Kirk's statements about race. Kirk believed that white Americans were under threat. He said that Democratic immigration policies were aimed at diminishing and decreasing white demographics in America. He promoted what's called the Great Replacement Theory, the idea that there's a deliberate plan to replace white Americans with immigrants. He even said things like, the American Democrat Party hates this country. They want to see it collapse. They love it when America becomes less white. Kirk made several problematic statements about black Americans. In 2023, he said, prowling blacks go around for fun to go target white people in urban areas. This kind of language is not only offensive, but also promotes harmful stereotypes. He also said things like, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified. Suggesting that black professionals might not be qualified for their jobs simply because of their race. Kirk strongly opposed what are called DEI programs, diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. He called them anti-white and blamed them for various problems, including aviation issues. When there were some aviation problems in America, instead of looking at the complex technical and regulatory reasons, Kirk immediately blamed diversity programs. Now let's talk about facts. The Great Replacement Theory is not supported by evidence. Immigration patterns in America are complex and influenced by many factors: economic opportunities, family reunification, refugee policies, and global conditions. There's no evidence of a deliberate conspiracy to replace any racial group. Also suggesting that minority professionals are less qualified simply because of their race is both factually wrong and harmful. People of all backgrounds can be equally qualified for their jobs. When Kirk questions a black pilot's qualifications based on race, he's not being logical or factual. He's promoting prejudice. Kirk's views on religion also changed dramatically over time, and this change tells us something important about how his thinking evolved. Initially, he supported the separation of church and state, a basic principle of American democracy. In 2018, he clearly said, "We do have a separation of church and state, and we should support that." This is a mainstream American position that most people, regardless of their political views, would agree with. But by 2022, Kirk completely reversed his position. He called the separation of church and state a fabrication and said it doesn't really exist. He said America should be a Christian nation and that you cannot have liberty if you do not have a Christian population. This is concerning because America was founded on the principle of religious freedom, meaning people of all religions or no religion should have equal rights. The Constitution clearly states that the government cannot favor any particular religion. Kirk also promoted something called the Seven Mountain Mandate, the idea that Christians should dominate 7 areas of society: government, media, education, business, family, religion, and entertainment. Kirk's positions on LGBTQ+ issues also evolved over time, generally becoming more restrictive and extreme. Initially, he was relatively liberal on these issues. In 2019, he even praised Trump for promoting the decriminalization of homosexuality globally. He said gay people should be allowed in the conservative movement. But by 2022, he was calling LGBTQ+ activists the alphabet mafia and claiming they want to corrupt your children. He opposed same-sex marriage and called for a nationwide ban on gender-affirming care for transgender people. But here's where it gets really extreme. Kirk called for Nuremberg-style trials for doctors who provide gender-affirming care. The Nuremberg trials were held after World War II to prosecute Nazi war criminals who committed genocide and crimes against humanity. Kirk was comparing doctors who provide accepted medical care to Nazi war criminals. This is an extraordinarily extreme position that most medical organizations would strongly disagree with. Kirk had strong opinions about America's role in the world, and many of these were controversial and seemed to align more with certain foreign governments than with traditional American positions. When Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, Kirk initially called it just a border dispute and repeated false claims from Russian state media. He said Ukrainian forces had been shelling Russian separatist areas. This was a claim directly from Russian propaganda that had been debunked. Kirk opposed sending military aid to Ukraine and called Ukrainian President Zelensky a CIA puppet and gangster. He said Zelensky sent his own people to a senseless massacre and had no interest in ending the war. He even offered an apology to the Russian people, saying most Americans don't want war with Russia and that the people who wanted to fight Russia were on their way out of power. This message was shared by Russian state media, RT, which should tell us something about how it was received. Kirk also said that Crimea, which Russia took from Ukraine in 2014, could not be returned to Ukraine because it has always been part of Russia. This is the exact position of the Russian government, not the position of the US government or international law. Kirk was strongly pro-Israel, but even here he promoted conspiracy theories. After the October 7, 2023 attacks where Hamas killed many Israeli civilians, Kirk suggested that the Israeli government knew Hamas was going to attack and allowed it to happen, so Netanyahu could stay in power. This is a conspiracy theory that blames Israel for attacks against its own citizens. He also said America should have taken Taiwan from China, even though this would probably start a nuclear war. Now let's step back and look at the bigger picture. What patterns do we see in Kirk's statements over the years? First, Kirk repeatedly shared statistics that turned out to be false. Whether it was about human trafficking, COVID-19, election results, or immigration, he often used numbers that fact-checkers later proved wrong. But these weren't just small errors, they were often completely fabricated statistics that made his arguments look more convincing. Second, Kirk promoted several conspiracy theories, from election fraud to the Great Replacement, to COVID-19 conspiracies to claims about Israeli government involvement in attacks against itself. Kirk seemed drawn to explanations that involved secret plots and cover-ups. Conspiracy theories are appealing because they offer simple explanations for complex problems, but they're usually not based on evidence. Third, Kirk often used very extreme language. He compared doctors to Nazi war criminals, called people gangsters or puppets, suggested violence against migrants, and used dehumanizing language about various groups. This kind of extreme rhetoric makes rational discussion very difficult and can contribute to real-world tensions and conflicts. Fourth, Kirk's positions changed dramatically over time, often becoming more extreme. He went from supporting the separation of church and state to calling it a fabrication. He went from being relatively liberal on LGBTQ+ issues to calling for Nuremberg-style trials. He went from being secular to promoting Christian nationalism. This suggests that his views might have been influenced more by what was popular with his audience, or politically advantageous, than by consistent principles. You might wonder, why should we care about one person's controversial statements? Here's why this matters. Kirk's organization, Turning Point USA, specifically targeted college students. Young people are often forming their political views during their college years, and false information can significantly impact their understanding of the world. If students believe false statistics about crime, immigration, or elections, it affects how they vote and how they treat other people. Kirk also had a significant influence on conservative politics. He advised political campaigns, spoke at major events, and had millions of followers on social media. His statements reached a lot of people. When someone with that kind of reach repeatedly shares false information, it spreads quickly and widely. This contributes to what experts call an epistemic crisis, a situation where people can't agree on basic facts. When some people believe the 2020 election was stolen and others know it wasn't, when some people think COVID-19 vaccines are dangerous and others know they're safe, it becomes very difficult to have productive democratic discussions. What do you think? Were these just strong opinions, or did they cross the line into dangerous conspiracy theories? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives like this.